All right, Cameron. The time I lost $30,000 is a wild story. It really is out there. All right, so you were at this fundraiser that was being held by a local politician. A woman, um, she started speaking, and she was saying that she had met and got in touch with a billionaire, and you were interested in getting in touch with a billionaire because you got billionaire dreams. By the time you're 25, you're a billionaire. So she is saying that she's interviewing a billionaire, a Chinese billionaire, in the field of hydroponics, which you have a passion for hydroponics, and you wanted to speak with her about that. So you go and talk to her and you say, hey, I'm interested in what you guys are doing. And she's like, yeah, we're doing this interview circuit. We met this guy from China, works for the government, put together a Chinese billionaire project around hydroponics. We were interviewing him. We were also in Silicon Valley a couple of weeks ago with Intel, putting together things for them. And you're just listening to her and you're like, wow, okay, so this lady is, further along on the path. And so you also mentioned that you're looking for a mentor because you know that to get to the next level or to get to the places you've never been, you have to have someone who's been there. You have to have a mentor. So since that is true, you say, yeah, I'm looking for a mentor. And she's like, oh, I'm looking for a mentee. How convenient. And so as time unfolds, she tells you about the businesses that she's starting under this company called Backsack. And it's like it's something called like, something about like be a creative kid or something like that. Support a creative kid or be a corporate kid. You know what? The actual acronym, it changed. Now it should have been One Flag, because that's like the mission of the company. Why is it changing? So over time, you ended up meeting her associates, like, I guess this was like her adopted daughter, and then another girl who is her assistant. So at the time you had your house, so you were ended up like getting mentored more and more. You were meeting with this woman frequently, and then eventually she started asking you for money because they needed money to go to these places to meet with more people who were an integral part of building a business, people who were going to be contributing ideas on like a executive level. So you were very gracious. You opened up your home. You let her assistant live with you on the condition, which she offered, the condition that she would pay you $5,000 for about 6 months worth of time for her living in one of the rooms in your home. So then her assistant ends up moving into the house. And of course, there's like an expense with that. So her assistant's living with you. And then at that point, you get like a title, right? You're like the VP of marketing or something like that. But now at the time, you were giving her this money, like $2,000 here, $3,000 there, $4,000 there. And you guys are traveling all over the country. So you end up going to Chicago. You go to Santa Monica for the first time. You go to like Los Angeles to meet up with some people. Go to Virginia, and these places are like, go to Chicago, your first time going to Chicago, and so that's fine. However, like the trips itself are like, I thought we were going to meet people, but when you really get down to the nitty gritty, you could have just had a phone call conversation with these people, and she could have had a phone call conversation, and there was some elements, like you were very naive at the time. You just didn't know what to ask for and what to say, like, okay, this is where I draw the line. This is where I'm not going to continue to give money unless I have information about who are these other people, right? So for instance, she was supposed to be the chief marketing officer and there's supposed to be this other guy who's the CEO, Sherwood, but you've never met the man, and you could never get his phone number to call the man. And it's like, if this guy's a CEO, how come I've never seen him around here? Oh, well, now they got two people ganging up on you. Well, he's busy. He does some, he has some hotels or something up in, like, not even in this state, up like on like, up in like the north part of the country. And it's like, you don't really question that, like, man, this guy's running the company, but you've never met him, and you're supposed to be an executive, but you don't know the guy's name. And then you never asked, like, how much money had they ever made? How many times had they done this? Where was the video footage of them recording the Chinese billionaire? Like, you never even got the footage of them doing that recording. It was just happened. They just happened to say, they just said, oh, they're just talking. And it's like, wait, if you guys are doing all these recordings, how come there's no, like, evidence of the recording? So, you go to LA and you go actually meet with, for whatever reason, she's trying to pitch this idea of a video series circuit to get funding for it. And you're like, that's fine. No, that's like how a business goes. You got to go raise capital, but you have to actually raise capital, and you have to have like something definite that is, this is what the vision. Like, this woman kept changing what the vision was to suit the needs of the next person she was trying to rope in, but never actually fulfilling. So if she ended up roping you in and she got your money, she never actually fulfilled what that was, because the dream changed as she tried to rope in the next person. Ponzi scheme. So you end up going to Santa Monica. You're sitting down with these women, like this guy from the film school. This woman, she's a professor, I think, at the film school in Orange County. And you guys just talk about like some BS about how they're gonna go to Africa and film this stuff, and you just expressing to them, like, basically they're like, she just likes the style, right? Because you wearing your suit jacket with a white tee, and it's like a young professional type of look, young CEO, but like, you over here politicking with these people and you can do it really well. However, there's no like, what is the point of this conversation? Because like, we're not building on anything. The woman, she had met the person from California previously, and they hadn't come to an agreement of terms of what was to be expected. The lady from California knew what was to be expected. However, the person who was supposed to be my mentor wasn't meeting those expectations, and it wasn't being clear to her. And it wasn't being clear to you that none of this had anything to do with hydroponics. None of this had anything to do with an interview series or an interview circuit. It was just a pitch. Like, she was really good at pitching these ideas that never became tangible. They never got grounded. The team was never in place to put the work together. And in many cases, you were meeting with them. They were meeting at your house. So your house is the office. When it's like, man, if y'all got all this money, I done gave you like $25,000 by now. Why don't you have an office if we need an office, right? If there's an office that has to be needed and I'm giving you money, why wasn't one like anticipated that there would be an office needed? So the fact that there was an office, we were meeting at my house, her assistant was living at my house, it was not clicking in my mind that like all of this was really circling around me. And then I was really not paying attention to the signs of like, hey, like, you said you had a business partner before, why did things not work out with him? And this guy's just like, oh, this guy's supposed to be a businessman hustler. It was like, okay, so like, if he's a businessman hustler, how come you're not still in business with him? Right? Like, if you in business, the business keeps rolling. It doesn't stop. So I didn't ask enough questions about that. And then when I was trying to, like, we went to California, right? We met these other people who I guess she had made some connections. Come to find out, she just hit these people up on LinkedIn and started talking to them about whatever she was trying to pitch to get money out of them. So go to Cali, and I'm talking with these people, like, you met this really one boss lady, She worked on the stock market. She's like the only black woman at the time working on the stock exchange, doing, I don't know, $1 million transactions for corporations that were buying bonds and leveraging them into other assets like stocks or warrants or options. And so she was like a broker, but really she was a salesperson who sounds like she just did ministerial type of activity. She wasn't actually selling the company. It seems like most companies at that level have an inside team that does their own financial research and analysis. So you meet that boss chick and you're like, man, she's really cool. But your mentor, right? Your mentor is not wanting to connect you with this stock market lady. She won't like give you her phone number, and so you can actually like have an independent conversation when she's not around. So like that's an issue. We even went to Houston, right? We went to Houston. That's my first time going to Houston, and we met this guy who was from Liberia. This is when I really heard about Liberia. I got interested in wanting to go to Liberia because they would be easy to obtain citizenship, especially since it was established by immigrants from America. So come to find out in Houston, like we meet a guy and he's got all these connections. He had he's already retired. He's been on a couple $1 million teams. And I was asking him like, what did he feel about the likelihood of this succeeding? Because we're driving all over Chicago. We're in Houston meeting with him, and we're supposed to be putting this together, but I can't really see, I can't see the way out. I can't see where this is meshing. I can't see where this is going. And so I was just like, what's like, I'm asking him, like, what do you think it's like? He's like, oh, he's confident. Like, this guy's like 40 at least. Like, he's at least bald and he has no facial hair. So he's at least like 40. So I'm like, he's really confident, and we're roommates, at the hotel. So he's like, yeah, I've been on a couple $1 million teams, and this is a $1 billion enterprise that we're building here. So we're going to be able to go for it because I believe in Marjay and I believe in the vision. And it's just like, I'm like, okay, so you believe in these people, but like where's like the money coming from? Because yeah, I'm the investor, but we're the customers. We're the clients. And I could never figure out, and I could never work up the courage to ask who's my mentor, because I'm like, yo, she's mentoring me on stuff I don't know. So maybe I'm just missing something. But the point is, she's supposed to have illuminated those things and have known that I was missing them to illuminate them for me, to say, this is where the customer's coming from. When really it was like I was the customer who was buying into this dream she had of making me a billionaire by the time I'm 25. And at the time, I believe I'm like 21. I'm in the middle of working on renovating the 2 quadruplexes I own. So I'm not only am I doing that, but I'm also spending a lot of time traveling across the country with this so-called mentor, going to all of these states, meeting with these people, going up into Chicago, meeting with people, and even these people who, like, I ended up doing like a lot of volunteer, maybe just why I don't do volunteer work at the moment. I did a lot of volunteer work, volunteering on some documentaries that were, that for whatever reason she was involved in, like where these white women had like made a documentary about how they grew up with black caretakers and how they felt bad about slavery. So now like they're bringing awareness, right, to their story, right? So they're making a documentary, right? So I'm over here literally passing out flyers for people to come to this this screening of this I'm not even gonna name drop it because it didn't make any sense. Like, I don't even know, like, I should have never even been involved in that project, because it's just like why? And I'm never really asking, I'm like, why am I passing out flyers for a documentary? What does that have to do with a $1 billion corporation? This is like nonprofit type of work. I'm like, what? I was asleep the whole time. I did end up meeting a lot of people who were talking about, like, I met this one guy, right? He's a Native American. Actually, he's all four races. He's Native American, he's black, white, and Asian. He said all the four races have an element that's associated with them. Black people are associated with water. White people are associated with fire. Asians are associated with air, and the Native Americans are associated with earth. And I made him like, man, it really makes sense. Like, black people are associated with water, and money is currency. So that means we are actually literally associated with the current flow of water, currency. Black people, right? But there's all kinds of other. I instilled that belief into myself because I knew that he was a spiritual man. And so that was interesting to pick up at the time. However, the rest of the time I spent there was pretty like useless. Like I learned all this other information that didn't have any relevance towards, again, the corporation of doing this interview series, or even this hydroponic business of making myself into $1 billion business person. For instance, I met this one woman. She's like up in Chicago, right? This older woman. She was doing research on her family tree. She was talking about how like the slave owners kept records of the slaves, and so like even when the slaves were slaves, they still had money and they had their own slave bank. So if you had like, you could basically always trace your ancestry, even if you were a slave, through that, and then all the way back to Africa, because they were. Everybody keeps records of their property, right? Regardless of whether or not you're a slave and the stigma and all that. If someone was a property, they had a name and a last name. So that was like, same. I mean, even like today, you have a social security card. We're property of the United States government, quote unquote. Same thing. So she was saying how you could trace that, and how at that time, like, there was like a guy who had like, this guy had like 50 children. He had like, and I think, well, no, I won't say it. He had like 50 mothers of children, all in this one area. Or it was just talking about like how like that approach to life has never left the black people. Like this guy had like he raised, he slept with. I don't want to say slept with, but he's fathered numbers of children from numerous numbers of women, right? Like that was interesting. And they were saying how like, oh, when I go to Liberia, right, I could have numerous wives. Which, again, the people from Liberia, like, that made no sense why they were even involved. And so all throughout this time, like, I'm giving this woman money to go on these trips, to go and meet these people who I'm meeting from Liberia, from Chicago, from Houston, from Santa Monica, and from UCLA. And the thing is, like, it's adding up. And again, this girl is still living in my home, right? This secretary. I'm just like, man, I'm never really finding out, like, when am I gonna get to see some like return on this investment of mine? Like, and it was even getting so bad because like we were flying to these places initially. Then we started renting cars and driving to these places so we could meet with these people. Like this woman had this grandiose idea that she was Oprah. And this is like, who cares? You can only be yourself. So like that was that period of time was it was probably like a year or more of my life where I had this quote unquote mentor who was really finessing me and fleecing me out of thousands and thousands of dollars. Because I didn't ask the right questions. I was too afraid. She was inhibiting information. The story kept changing. There were no financial documents. The business kept changing. I knew more about business than she did. She kept taking my lessons that I was learning. Like, for instance, Sam Walton, when he was establishing Walmart Enterprises, which is what I discovered. He did profit sharing with his managers, with the managers of his companies, so that way he knew that they were invested into the business like he was, in a similar capacity. They're equity, right? So she was like, then she started incorporating that into what she was saying with all these people. Like, oh, we're going to do profit sharing. We're going to do profit sharing like this and that. But we didn't have a product to share. We didn't have any profits to turn. even in one case, we sat down at this. We were coming up with a product to sell, right? So we knew this guy, and this guy's name is Jared. He's like, it was weird. She was like making fun of him, but also like admiring him at the same time because he used a metal detector to go and look for objects with his metal detector, which I'm like, that's cool. Sounds cool to me. Like he hikes up the Appalachian Mountain trails. He knows who he is. Like it's, I mean, like it was weird why she was making fun of this guy and then also trying to have him on the team with us. It was like that should have been a red flag too. It's like you're talking down to the people you want to employ. And this guy Jared, he also had his own like Amazon business where he was selling products online, making like $3,000-4,000 a month. So like he had multiple streams of income. So, and I was like, so he was like he was like sharp. You know what I'm saying? He was sharp. So his wife is a designer of shoes and has actually done designs and done launches with Nike, a couple of Japanese companies, Asian companies, and like we could never actually sit down and like actually produce a physical product because she was so frustrated because she literally couldn't think through the sequence of idea to like a real product gets like created off of a line or gets like molded and then shipped to some other country, like, or shipped to here. We kept thinking about all the stuff like land in Liberia is $25 an acre, stuff like that. Or even like, for instance, like we took a trip to Houston because Floyd Mayweather was gonna buy this mansion in Texas. So I went to this mansion in Texas where the guy, he was a millionaire rancher. And they're talking about how like black men and black people connect with animals more than any other race, but they don't control their own mind. So that's why they're weak. Just like an animal, you have to control the animal's mind to be able to domesticate it. So we ended up touring this house, and she was like, "Oh, we're gonna sell the house to Floyd Mayweather and then make a commission, like a wholesale on the spread." It's just like you don't even know how to like do that. Like, but she somehow got a showing at the house, so like she was able to like talk her way into some situations that we had no business being in. Not only because we just didn't even have a business. Like you can go into a lot of situations and not have a business, and it's just like you could be doing something much more valuable with your time, and I could be doing something much more valuable with my time. Like, and then also in Houston, right? You guys were sitting inside of the Galleria, right? And she was like, "Who are all of these people who have these fashion brands, these luxury fashion brands? They're just random person's names who then decided to make it into a fashion brand." And so what you did was you discovered for yourself who the first cowboy was. It was a black man, Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves was the very first quote-unquote cowboy who was deputized in the Oklahoma region around the turn of around the time of the Trail of Tears, because a lot of the white people were going into that region and it was a lawless region. And so this black man became a deputy and was actually capturing these white criminals. White, I'm not even saying white, but just like, because they are Mexican also, and probably, maybe, but they're Mexican, and they would just kill people and murder people and like run off into like the Okies, because it was like, hey, it's like free land, it's lawless territory, it's the wild, wild west. And so he was Bass Reeves, and he like he rode a stallion, just like in whatever that cowboy show is, right? So he was the very first cowboy on the range. So I was like, man, that guy could be like, between her and I, we came up with this idea, which really I came up with the idea of like luxury products that are like cowboy boots. I think this was after I had already, no, it was before I actually went to Oklahoma. Um, Cowboy boots, um, belt buckles, hats, durable shoes for men who like wear through shoes, and then like make it like a luxury line under Bass Reeves. That way, that history is like it's real and it's actually like capitalized on, because he's like one of those forerunners in history. It's just like, man, you wouldn't believe like the first cowboy was a black man named Bass Reeves, rode a black horse or a stallion. It was like someone's got to tell the story and then capitalize on it. Like, why not? It's up for grabs, right? You know, real estate up for grabs. Every person's life is its own story that can be told, retold, and shared. It's capital. It's value. It's good consideration, right? So I'm considering this person my ancestor, and I'm considering his brand as something that's valuable and an asset to the community. So like that happened. Like again in Galleria, just like all these ideas are just like, oh, these are great ideas, but they're like a dime a dozen, right? There's no execution, because it was like you can't be an executive if you don't execute. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's called a chief executive for a reason. Like, you're executing decisions. Like that happened, and of course I paid for that trip to Texas. Stayed at the hotel too. We ended up like, for whatever reason, she was able to like, we talked to these people she talked to these people from New Zealand, and they had like a farm, and they had farm animals and sheep and stuff on the island of New Zealand. And she was like, yeah, we got invited to go to New Zealand to tell these people's story. I was like you could talk yourself into a lot of situations. Boy, like for me, I didn't get a return on my investment. I lost that money. I gave her $30,000, like when it was all said and done, and then I never even got any money for her assistant living in my home, in my room, in my house. It was like her assistant was real negative and also had some grandiose ideas, and just like the stuff that we're doing of like going to these places, going to LA, meeting these people, and around the ideas of influence, or like I can't even remember the concepts because there were so many of them. They were not even aligned with what her concepts were of wanting to be a film producer and make movies. So it's just like, why are you even working with this woman if you know that's the case? So that was like, and I can't forget the time when I went to the very first safari in Georgia. And Georgia's where I live at, the state. So apparently not apparently, I actually did go on a safari adventure here in Georgia. And it's in Madison County, Georgia. So apparently this guy was trying to raise $1 million to fund more of the development of the land, because I think he had some large landscaping company that he sold, right? And so he wanted to do something with this land, and so he turned it into a zoo. And I was like, that's a really novel idea. And he had some Asian wildebeest in there, horses, birds of prey. And the idea was to bring in some elephants and some giraffes, and then make some bungalows that are suspended very high in the air, so that you could see the giraffes from your bungalow at night or whenever. Like they could just come up and lean their head over. So they were looking for $1 million for that. And the guy from Liberia, he was saying, another guy from Liberia, he said, I need $1 million. Like we're in this meeting, right? And the guy who has the safari is like, yeah, I'm trying to raise $1 million. So then that's like, oh, that's why we invited this guy. And it's like, this guy's like, yeah, I'm from Liberia. I need $1 million so I can build a rice factory in my country. And it's like, wait a minute. You need $1 million. He needs $1 million. Like, what you mean? Like, the meeting was like stupid because it was like they were trying to get money from him, but he needed money. And like it was even dumber because I ended up meeting some people who were like, this guy was like the #1 actor in like Liberia, Africa, and no, excuse me, that was stupid. Liberia, Nigeria, and Ghana. Right? His name is like Frank something. Took a picture with him and everything. And again, they were talking about like doing some orphanages and how we were gonna create this campaign of going to meet the president of Liberia at the time, who was a legendary footballer, George Weah. And it's like they needed to go. That's why we were gonna go to Liberia to meet George Weah, to pitch him on all these ideas that we had about what they could implement in Liberia, right? Which is a developing nation. Like the one I was gonna bring in Forex, ideas around agriculture and hydroponics, cryptocurrencies, how to use like sustainable farming methods to like farm like all the different varieties of useful plant species, clothing, art, movies, making movies around it, and documentaries. And like the guy who was supposed to be our connect to the president, he was like, oh yeah, I know you want me to like introduce you to the president, but I'm actually about to run for president. So, and I'm gonna run against the current president. So it doesn't look good for me to do that, because I actually don't agree with the president. So I'm not gonna introduce you to him. And I was like, man, what kind of, how are we supposed to get this business plan across? Like, we were never going to get the business plan across because it was never solid. Like, and even if we met the president, like, again, if we need to connect like that and he's not even the right connect, it's like he's got his own political ambitions. It just doesn't line up. It really doesn't line up. There's no alignment with like us talking to him helping us, and what any of this has to do with hydroponics, a Chinese billionaire, and becoming a $1 billion company in 3 to 4 years. Nothing. It was just so many people getting roped into this like scheme, Ponzi scheme. Like, and that's the long and short of it. Like, it was a big Ponzi scheme. I ended up spending like $35,000. I had a terrible mentor, had a terrible experience. Pretty much just like those type of experiences, not only did it waste your time, but it gave you a bad taste in your mouth about what business is supposed to be. Because you definitely got taken advantage of and was violated, because you're a young guy. You're sharing your story about how you had broken your legs, you got a settlement, you were investing that money wisely into real estate. This woman did not give. She didn't care. She didn't care. She just lied and lied and lied. Took your money. And when you eventually confronted her, like, when are you going to pay me my money back? She started trying to speak in tongues to you, like, oh, I'm going to rebuke the devil out of you. It's like, lady, you are so confused right now, because I'm asking you for my money back. No. I'm asking you for return on my principal, and you can't supply it to me. But you're always talking about how you found someone else to give you money. Like, what are you doing with the money? Where is it going? What product have you produced? What content? Where's the policies and procedures? What establishment has been established? How has it been funneled? What receipts do you have? What clients do you have? What customers? What testimonials? What taxes have you paid? How much money have you made? How many times have you done this? What's the return on investment? What's the capital generated? What's the internal rate on return? Who gets compensated what? Who's actually an employee? How are they paid? Is it 1099 or W-2? It was just so much that, like, this woman, she's like 60 years old or like 55 or something like that. So, and you're like 21, right? And you met her at a safe space. You met her through a guy you know, who, you know this guy because you know him through your dad. So I know this guy through my dad, and he was a manager at Home Depot, and then he retired. And so you were talking with him like, man, maybe I could get a product on the shelves in Home Depot since you like managed the Home Depot for a while. But he had a little bit of pull with that, but not a lot. But he was running for political office, and he had a couple of nonprofits. Like he had a nonprofit for battered women. He had one for like this building he renovated, and he had another one for I think like cleaning up the community. So you were just at one of his fundraisers. It wasn't a fundraiser, but it was just him saying like they had all these breakthroughs in these programs that they were running for people like the battered women, and how like they're graduating these women out of their program. And so he invited you because you'd been talking to him frequently, and you had helped out one of his other campaigns around the time when we were voting for the city of Atlanta mayor. And so that's where you met her at. And it's like he knew her because he had given her money at some point in time. So that's why she was invited. So it's like you met her through his event, which is a safe space, but clearly he had no idea what type of woman this actually was. And his name is Kenny Hill. So if he's still a legit guy, Kenny Hill, you know what I'm saying, make sure you got some ethics and some morals. I don't see why not. Like, you know, run again. So met her in a safe space. She took advantage of you. Like, she really, like, she ran through that money. She made you feel stupid. And it's like, after you gave her that money, she bought like a brand new car. Coincidence? It's no coincidences. It's really no coincidences. So regardless of how brilliant I am, I was so naive. So naive. And it really hurt me. It really hurt me, like abused me. Like situations like that are depressing, where you get finessed out of somebody who's supposed to be your mentor, and like you're spending so much time. I'm spending so much time around this woman. It's like a mother figure, but I'm like, damn, like this is my mom. It's supposed to be like my mom as a mentor. She's like basically just screwing me over. It was like, it's like, you know what? Like it trust issues, right? Like that stuff creates trust issues. A lot of them. This is supposed to be my first, and this is my legit first, not my legit like first mentor, but in business, my first business mentor. So yeah, you gave her about $35,000. What's funny was, actually it's not funny, this is actually depressingly sad, is that after you had ran out of money, and you had said that you're, Cameron, I'm going to go to Africa. I'm going to go to Africa because I need to connect with my roots. And conveniently, she was going to Liberia. we were going to Liberia. I was like, great, we're planning a trip to Liberia. She's like, yeah, we'll cover it. The company will cover it. After you ran out of money, she finds somebody else, like a attorney, finesses him, and goes to Liberia without you, without me. And I'm like, I'm so mad, I'm so depressed, I'm crushed. Cause I'm like, that was really my dream. I wanted to go to Africa. And now I don't have any money. And then this woman somehow found another guy to fleece and took a trip to Africa for a week, walking on the beaches. And I was like, bruh, how much bigger of a slap in the face could it get? Like, you had $30,000 that you were invested into a business, and then you didn't even go and do one of the major things you wanted to do, which was go to Africa. Shit like that is like, you want to like hurt people, but you can't, because it's not worth it. Because you should have woken up. You were fantasizing. This woman had no skills. She still has no skills. No real business skills, ethically, to provide a service. So, things like that, like this has been like 3 or 4 years later. It takes time to recover. But it wasn't who she was, it was how she did things. How she did things. That just really just took advantage of your naivety. So you were not the first person she took advantage of. And you were not the last either. Like, she was openly admitting, like, yeah, I found another guy to give me some money. I found another person to give me some money. But you know, she would never introduce these people to each other. Like, she would never introduce me to these people. Because she knew that, like, she was not producing. She was advocating, but not producing. See, it's not even the amount of money, because I've had a lot more money than that. And I'll get more money than that. It was just my confidence was taken advantage of and just trampled and eroded. Like those type of things, like your values, when they get just like squashed and just stepped on like that, and like everyone's smiling in your face, like, oh yeah, like we're all on the same team, but you're gonna pay for everything, and we get all the benefits. In fact, we get more benefits than you're getting. But you have all the ideas. But we have a slightly bigger vision. We're like 2 steps ahead of the vision you have, so you know that. So you feel like we know what we're doing. Man. I'll probably make another video about why my first mentor was one of my worst mentors. I've had other bad mentors. However, it just didn't go well. Farewell.